Okay. Kind of went over this. We went over that. If you guys notice the one video that there's two videos on there. One's like a long one that just says endocrine system. And then another one is that short one that says mode of action. That has the other two questions we went over as well. Farron messing up the feng shui of my lecture. Just kidding. Hold on. All right, yeah. So it has this on it, hormone interactions, and it's explaining this thing. That's kind of where we left off. That was kind of the part that really sucked, and so that's where we left off last class. So we have 3 questions that are in your test bank so far. So the first question is the mode of action of lipid soluble versus water soluble hormones. And that's explained in that video. And then the second question is how hormones interact. That's easy. It's already written out right there. And the third question was circulating versus local hormones. So now we're going to kind of move on. This is the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus. They're not really showing you the hypothalamus here. So when we go back to that first slide, talking about like up here, that pituitary gland hanging down there, right? And it looks like it's hard to see, but there's like 2 lobes on it. So the pituitary gland is here where this thing's pointing. I mean, that's the hypothalamus, and the pituitary is right underneath it. So I don't know what that is. Oh yeah, that's me having to make it bigger. So it's got the pituitary gland has 2 lobes to it, 2 parts to it. There's an anterior lobe and a posterior lobe. Check out this word right here. Hypophyseal. Hypophysis. That's another name. Like you see it here, you see it here. That's another name for the pituitary gland. It's called the hypophysis. Like hypophysis. That's just kind of FYI, right? I'm not gonna. And then these have different names. So we have that word hypophysis. This is like a posterior. This is anterior. This is posterior. So you see, there's like 2 lobes, and they're colored here. So the front one is called adenohypophysis. Again, it's okay if you don't know the name. The back one's called neurohypophysis. It's just they have other names in case you run into that in your book. Oh man, somebody came in. I just set it up. It's like, I'm afraid to set it up. See if she has a camera. What's up, Tanetta? I thought you graduated by now.
Good morning.
Morning. You didn't graduate? Oh, so I'm so glad I stayed in. See, I almost switched over to my PowerPoint again.
No, I didn't graduate. This will be my last semester.
Good.
Yes.
We'll need to move on.
Yes, it's time.
Speaking of graduation, I graduated last week and I'm back here.
Don't you just love it?
Right. All right, let me go back to the PowerPoint. Let me see if it's safe to go back. All right. Yeah, so pituitary gland. Anterior, posterior. We are going to talk about the anterior lobe. Then we'll talk about the posterior lobe. Anterior is more difficult than the posterior. The anterior is going to make a bunch of hormones. Well, 7. It's going to make 7 hormones, and it's going to send it to other places in the body. So you see, here's the hypothalamus. You see how there's like blood. There's like a blood supply, and it comes down here, and it goes to the anterior lobe. And then if you follow this, it goes back out again. So there's going to be a hormone. There's going to be different hormones that the hypothalamus secretes, and it's going to come down here, and it's going to go to the anterior lobe. And then the anterior lobe, based on that, it makes its own hormones. So it's making 7 different hormones. Which one of the 7 that it's going to make, that depends on whatever the hypothalamus tells it to. Right? So whatever one of the 7 hormones it makes, you can see it's going to come out through this blood vessel, and it's going to go to different places in the body. Right? Maybe this is bound for the kidneys or the ovaries or wherever, mammary glands. But anyway, let's talk about the different types of hormones. So these are the 7 hormones that this anterior part of the pituitary makes. And what you see on the left side, these are the cells that make them. So when you look at the anterior pituitary gland, there's 5 different types of cells. They all end with troph. Troph or tropin, I think it means it's like something that influences an organ or gland far away. It's something that influences something else like further away. It probably doesn't make any sense, but let's look at the words, like the front words. Somato, you'll see that word in other words. Somato means like growth, right? If you look across here, you could kind of figure out what this means. HGH, human growth hormone. It's okay and probably preferable to just know the abbreviations. So if you put the abbreviation on a test, that's fine, because that's what everybody uses. In your head, I'd like you to know what it is, like what it stands for, but I'm not going to make you write it out. Well, you know what the H means already. It's got to mean hormone, right? So wherever you see it, it's going to mean hormone. So somato means growth. So when you see it in another word, it's like it's something that's growing. Lacto, just like you think, milk. So those are making a hormone called prolactin, which is going to promote milk growth. Thyrotropin, we're thinking of the thyroid gland. And it makes a hormone called thyroid stimulating hormone. Guess what it does? It stimulates the thyroid. So thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH. But everyone calls it TSH. Gonadotrophs, gonads. So they're making these they make 2 hormones. These types of cells make 2 hormones. Follicle stimulating hormone, which the name gives it away. It stimulates your follicles, ovarian follicles. It does stuff in the testes also. Obviously, it's not going to be producing eggs, but it does sperm. Sperms is, and then LH stands for luteinizing hormone. You're going to run across those 2 whenever you talk about like reproductive system, embryology. Like it's a section in future classes, and like these hormones have a play in that. So follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and then this last word, cortico. When you see cortico in a word, it has something to do with steroids. like steroids, like the steroids you think of. Like when you get a steroid shot, it's cortico something. Right. So corticotrophs are going to go down to your adrenal glands. Those are sitting on top of your kidneys, and your adrenal glands make, among other things, they make steroids like hydrocortisone, cortisol, whatever. So ACTH is so when your body wants to release steroids, what we typically know as steroids, the corticotrophs are going to make ACTH, and ACTH is released in your brain, and it goes down to your adrenal glands and causes your adrenal glands to make like steroids. So ACTH stands, and again, you don't have to know the whole word, but it stands for Adrenocorticotropin Hormone, which you're like, oh, Adrenocorticotropin Hormone? It's not actually. All I did was I took the word rain and I took the word jacket or coat, and then I just put them together, raincoat. And then you're like, oh, how does he remember that long word? It's like, it's not a long word. It's just putting some short words together. Adreno or adeno. It's like a word that's used in lots of words. And like corticotrope, it's already here. So I already knew that word because I say it every semester. Corticotropin and then hormone, right? So it's not actually a difficult word. The long words, when you get into like nursing and stuff, the long words, you should be relaxed. Like, oh, yes, a long word. Because in that long word is the answer to that multiple choice question. It's a long ass word. Pick out the parts and you can figure out what it does. And even though you didn't study, that'll be enough. If you know the words, it's enough to BS your way through that multiple choice test. In another class, not ours, we don't have those types of questions. So anyway, you got to know these 7 hormones. It's like something I'll ask. I don't know if I'll ask it on the quiz or the exam. We'll talk about that. But you're definitely gonna have to know it, right? So you're gonna have to know the hormones. These 7. You can abbreviate. I put small letter on this. I've seen it written with a capital letter also, but I did that small h on purpose. It's not like a typo. But anyway, these are the anterior pituitary hormones. We're going to talk about each one later. And these are the 5 cells that make these hormones. So the anterior pituitary gland has 5 different types of cells, and they manufacture these hormones. Now, to make it harder, these hormones don't get released until the hypothalamus tells it to release it. So the hypothalamus has to let it, okay, now you can release human growth hormone. So the hypothalamus is controlling the pituitary gland. So I know that gets kind of confusing. So these are the cells that make these 7 hormones. But these cells will not make these 7 hormones until these hormones stimulate it. So this comes from the hypothalamus, and you see how they all end in RH, releasing hormone. They all end with RH. You see I've got 2 of them here. IH, if you want to guess if R means releasing, what would I mean?
Inhibiting?
Yeah. Good. Yeah, inhibiting hormones, right? So this is, and we could, if you thought about it, you could even guess what the name of this is. Like, what do you think the GH would be?
I don't know how to pronounce any of these signs.
Okay, well, what do you think this is? HGH. That's one because you hear it.
Growth hormone.
Exactly, growth hormone. And so human growth hormone. So that one is like, maybe the other ones are difficult, but that one's like, okay, human growth hormone, like we hear that on. They're always pushing guys my age to start taking human growth hormone or supplements are supposed to change our life. Okay, so now we're back to this word. So what does the GH mean here?
Is it the same thing? Growth
Same
hormone?
thing. Growth hormone.
Question.
And the
Releasing
RH is
hormone.
releasing hormone.
Growth hormone releasing hormone. And then what is GHIH?
Growth hormone inhibiting hormone.
Yeah. So if your hypothalamus is pumping out GHIH, you're not going to grow because GHIH shuts these cells off and you're not going to make human growth hormone. I'm not saying it shuts them off. It usually just like regulates it. Okay, you know, you're 22 now. Stop growing, right? And then as you get older and older, it just makes less and less. But that's and growth hormones being made your whole life, right? But there's points in your life where it just like, bam, you start dumping it, right? When you're in puberty, pre-puberty, you're dumping that stuff because you're going to really start to do some major growing. But even when you're an adult, you're still making it because growth hormone, you still need to do things. Like you're still making more hair and more skin and more whatever. So, but anyway, the point is, these are the hormones that come from the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus is controlling the pituitary gland. And it's doing it by releasing these hormones. So this one, PRL, prolactin. So then if we were to guess here, prolactin releasing hormone. Again, the letters, you only need the letters. All right, so you don't have to write all this down, prolactin releasing hormone. No, just PRH, it's fine. And then you can guess prolactin inhibiting hormone. So those two hormones, these first two that I put here, you have to tell it to stop. So growth hormone and prolactin, the hypothalamus has to go and tell the pituitary, okay, stop it. Tell them to stop. Like no more prolactin, no more growth hormone. But the other ones here, you don't have to tell them to stop. It's going to automatically stop. Once the problem or whatever it is, once the issue is fixed, it's going to stop on its own. So if you stop making TRH, which is called thyrotropin, thyroid releasing hormone, TSH won't be made. So once you get normal thyroid levels, the hypothalamus will stop making this releasing hormone. And then your pituitary will stop making TSH. What do we call that? Like when you break that cycle. It's the way our body stops things. And you can say it to yourself. You don't have to like unmute. But think of it to yourself. Like, how does the body usually stop things once that balance is reached? So negative feedback. So these all 5 of these work with negative feedback. That's kind of normally how things work. Here, no, it's not negative feedback. You actually have to tell it to stop. So the hypothalamus has to release a hormone, growth hormone, inhibiting hormone, and make it stop. So this one is thyrotropin releasing hormone. This one is gonadotropin releasing hormone. So it's telling I forgot the name already, the gonadotrophs. I don't know how I did that. It's telling the gonadotrophs, okay, gonadotrophs, make your FSH and LH. If the hypothalamus doesn't release this, these cells won't make their hormone. And then CRH, corticotropin releasing hormone. Again, letters, like I have it written. Letters are fine. With almost all the hormones, they use just the abbreviations. Perfectly acceptable. So these releasing hormones from the hypothalamus go to these cells and cause these cells to make these hormones. if I were to ask you the target of these hormones, you probably already know them. So prolactin, where is prolactin headed to? I don't know, what lactates, right? Your mammary glands, that's where it's headed. This one's got the target cell name in it. Thyrotropin or thyroid. It's actually thyroid stimulating hormone. So guess where the target cells are? The thyroid gland. These two, you know where they're going. The clue is right here, gonads. They're going down to your gonads. They're going down to your testes or ovaries. Human growth hormone goes to things that grow. Bone, cartilage, skin, liver, whatever else. It's going to lots of things. And then lastly, down here, we never talked about this, MSH. ACTH, that's going down to your adrenal glands. That one you might not have known. And then MSH, there's a little gland, pineal gland up in your brain. So MSH is just going to come right over here and go to the pineal gland. We don't know a lot about it. It stands for melanocyte stimulating hormone. There's two possibilities, and I'm just talking here. I'm not gonna test you on what is melanocyte stimulating hormone. Out of these 7 hormones, I'm probably gonna ignore the MSH part. You have to know the hormone, but I'm not gonna ask you anything about the hormone, right? But I am gonna ask you, what does ACTH do? What does TSH do? But when I get to MSH, but we think that it most likely it makes freckles. Probably has to do with skin color like melanin. Probably has to do with melatonin, circadian rhythms, how it's day versus night, things like that. That's our best knowledge of the pineal gland.
So when you say, excuse me, so when you say you're gonna what do they do? So for the human growth, I would say it helps grow hair. I don't know.
Yes, but
Okay.
But later on, I'm gonna want to know how. So yes, it makes you grow like everything that grows. But how? What is it that it does to make you grow? And so we'll be talking about that. It's not extremely difficult. It's not like I'm going to have a bunch of molecular structures. I can even tell you now, when you want to grow anything in your body, you need protein. Protein. It's the most common word. It's the most common molecule that we talk about in physiology. Proteins. You got a patient in the hospital and they got in a car wreck and they're all jacked up and they need to fix themselves and they're getting an IV diet, you better make sure there's a lot of protein in there, amino acids, because that's what they need to repair themselves. That's what you need to grow. So that's one thing that human growth hormone is going to do. So when you eat a steak, your body doesn't suck all the proteins out of it. It actually leaves most of it. You take some of it, you take some of those proteins from the steak, and you're going to use that to make new stuff that your body needs. But most of it, you're going to poo it out. When you have human growth hormone, it's going to make you take in more of that protein than you would normally take in. So that's one thing that it does. It takes in a lot of protein because that's what you need to build shit. Your hair, fingernails, bones, cartilage, whatever you're going to use, you need protein. Otherwise, it's not happening. But you need energy too, right? So you need protein, right? And you need the energy to power that. So it makes you, growth hormone makes you really good at taking energy out of your food. And if you got fat stores, well, we need that energy. You're going to start losing weight because it's going to start taking, ideally, it's going to start taking all that fat and breaking it up because we need that energy. Because you can't just take proteins from steak or hamburger and build hair. I mean, that's the material, but we got to cook it. You know, that's like the ingredients, but how are we going to turn on the oven? So we need that. We need energy, right? So you break up fat and you break up, like you use all your blood sugar for energy. So that's really, I jumped way ahead, but that's what it does. So it's not like super hard, but that's what human growth hormone does. It lets your body use all the energy that you have from carbs and lipids, carbohydrates and lipids. That's your two sources of energy. And then it makes your body take proteins and use it to grow. There's a lot of hormones that do this. That's also what steroids do. Steroids do the same thing that human growth hormone does, just that they got different reasons to do it. Steroids, you got something to fix. You sprained your ankle. You got to fix that. Steroids, they do the same thing. Human growth hormone is not about repairing tissue, it's about growing. And even, well, okay, I'm gonna stop it there. So, yeah, so we'll get into like what each of these, some of them are like super easy. Some of them I have like really nothing to say about, like prolactin, like it goes down there and makes milk. So I won't spend a lot of time on that. But MSH, I'm not going to ask you because we don't really exactly know. I mean, maybe today we know, but as of a few years ago, we didn't know. I haven't checked up on it. So the takeaway, what do you need to know for today, for the next week? You need to know these 7 hormones. What are the 5 cells that make them? And this is just memorization, really. And what are the releasing hormones? So really, if I wanted to make a less confusing slide, I would take this column here, this column right here, and I would put it, that's still confusing though. I'd put it maybe right here. So this column should go like before this. So GHRH causes somatotrophs, that's the cell, to release human growth hormone. So that's the takeaway. It's these 2 slides. And that's a lot of letters and a lot of stuff I was talking about. So I know that's kind of confusing. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, you said the 5 cells that make them, and what else?
The 5 cells that make them. You have to know the hormones. These are the 7 hormones of the anterior pituitary gland. So you have to know them. And they're just letters. You have to know the cells that make them. So you have to know that prolactin, is made by lactotrophs.
So can you fast forward to that other slide one more time? Oh, so then it would be PR8 is what makes the lactotrophin. I always say that wrong.
Yeah, you're good. Keep going.
And then TR8 is what makes the thyrotropin.
The thyrotropin.
Oh no. PRH is what makes. Oh no, I'm confused now.
Okay, let's go to the prolactin. The PRH goes to these cells.
Oh, okay.
And what are these cells going to do when the PRH gets there?
They're gonna release the hormone,
Which is
the PRL.
Where's PRL going to go once it's made?
To the hypothalamus.
So this comes from the hypothalamus.
Okay.
And from the hypothalamus, it's always going to go to the pituitary gland.
Oh, pituitary.
Okay, let me show you a picture instead. All right. Here's the hypothalamus, that top line. It's going to make PRH, prolactin releasing hormone. It's only going right there to the tip of my pointer. It's not going very far. It's just dropping down into the pituitary. It's going to lactotrophs.
Okay, wait.
Those cells are going to make prolactin.
You said the PRH is going to the pituitary gland,
Yes.
and then from there, I'm sorry, could you go again?
Yeah. So the PRH goes to the pituitary gland. It tells the lactotroph, that's a type of cell. It tells those cells to make prolactin. Once then prolactin is put into the bloodstream, and it's going to go down here to the mammary glands, and that's how the mammary glands know to start making milk. So these are all the cells, and then these are this is the pituitary hormone that these cells make. So lactotrophs make PRL.
Gotcha.
Lactotrophs will not do it unless it gets a hormone signal from the hypothalamus. So it's like a permissive effect. The hypothalamus has to give it permission, and the name of that hormone is PRH.
So then TRH makes the thyrotrophics, right?
It causes the
This I meant to say.
it causes the thyrotroph to do what?
It causes it to release the hormone,
Which is
PRL.
that's a lactotroph.
I meant to say TSH.
Right. Where is TSH gonna go? Like once it's made.
To the pituitary.
Where?
To the pituitary gland.
It's already there. TSH is in the pituitary
The
gland.
thyroid.
Yeah. Then it goes down to the thyroid.
Yeah, I always confuse myself.
It is confusing, and the way I listed it doesn't help. Gonadotroph is a type of cell. These are all types of cells. So gonadotrophs make this. They make both of these hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So these hormones are all made in the pituitary gland, up in the brain, but they're all headed to different places. So where are these two going to head? Where's their target? And look at this name back here. This gives you the clue.
So the gonads.
Yeah. So they go into, in your case, they're going to your ovaries. So like FSH is going to help you make your eggs, and the LH is going to help you with like progesterone and stuff like that, right? So that's their target. They're not headed to your fingertips, right? So they've all got like these places that they're headed, but they're all made in your pituitary, but then they get sent out to different locations. But the thing is, these cells here, they're not necessarily going to be making these hormones like all the time, or they're not going to make them at high levels. Maybe they'll make them at low levels or not at all. It just depends. You know, if you're not pregnant, why are you making, or you're not breastfeeding, like why are you making prolactin? Your lactotrophs don't necessarily need to be active because you don't need that. It's wasting time. Right. But the pituitary gland doesn't know what's going on in your body. It's got no information. It only knows I got to make prolactin or I don't make prolactin. It doesn't know why. It doesn't know what's up with you. The hypothalamus knows though, because your uterus is all wired up to your hypothalamus. So it's telling the hypothalamus stuff all the time. I'm not pregnant. I'm not pregnant. I am pregnant now. You know, oh, baby's growing. So the hypothalamus knows all this information. It's got the information from like the whole body. So the hypothalamus will talk to the pituitary with these hormones. So hypothalamus keeps getting signals from your body. I've got a baby in me. I've got a baby in me. And then the hypothalamus releases PRH. And that's going to go down to the lactotroph so that the lactotroph can start making PRL. Let me let the person in. Don't worry too much if it's like confusing, because you know what makes it really difficult is I throw a bunch of words at you. So that makes it harder to understand because just naturally we're trying to focus in on these letters. And even though you might be telling yourself, okay, I'm not going to memorize these, there's a part of your brain that's doing exactly that. Because your brain understands that this information has to be recalled and it's important. So already you're trying to, like, even if you're not trying to, you're trying to memorize this, and it's holding you back from getting how it works.
And that's true. And I feel like sometimes when we're learning certain stuff, sometimes we may just be trying to hurry up and learn it for a test. And you can't even relax. I can't wait till I get to a phase when I can relax. It's like, because I'm trying to work so hard to keep my grades up to get into dental school. So then I feel like once I'm finally there, I could be able to relax and actually learn what I need to learn. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's but like this, like you even like look at this stuff and you're like, I'm not gonna need this in dental school.
I know,
You
and
won't
making us take it.
You won't need it as a dentist. They're gonna make you, this stuff's gonna come back up in dental school. It will not come back up when you're a dentist. Not this particular stuff. I mean, why would it? But
These slides, are they going to be
Question.
in Canvas for us to look at?
I'm recording this.
Okay.
And I have like so there's always like at least 2 types of videos that say the same thing. So you're going to get to a point where like you go to look at the material. I'll say like quiz 1 material, and there's like a lot of videos. You're like, well, that's too many videos. There's like,
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of confused on this anterior hormone.
Yeah, like I'm
trying to keep up, but I'm still confused.
I have a question.
Sure.
I just want to see if I have the order right. So the hypothalamus gland send a signal to the pituitary glands, and that goes to the releasing hormone, and that makes cells, and then the cells will send a signal to the hormones.
You've got all the words. Just
the anterior.
It's all in the wrong order.
Okay, yeah, I'm confused.
All the right words. Wait, try one more time. So what do we start with?
We start with the hypothalamus glands, and then that makes chemicals.
What do they make?
What do they make?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it like
I mean the hormones, but what kind?
Oh, I don't know.
So I got them right up here. They make all the releasing hormones.
Okay, so
this right here, this is what the hypothalamus makes.
Okay, so it only makes these hormones?
Yeah, those 5. I mean, for right now, that's the only 5 that they make.
Okay, so it makes these 5 hormones.
Yeah, that's the only way that so you know that the hypothalamus controls the pituitary gland.
Yes.
This is how it does it. That's how it communicates. It releases these chemicals. That's how it communicates with the pituitary.
So it releases the chemicals first, and then those chemicals make more cells, make the cells.
So the cells already exist. Like
send the signal to the cells?
it sends a signal to the cells of
Yes.
the pituitary, and these are the cells.
Okay.
So the H, like for example, growth hormone releasing hormone. It's a signal. It's telling the somatotrope, release your hormone. Whatever hormone you make, release it. That's the signal.
Okay, and then
growth hormone releasing hormone. Release your growth hormone, somatotrope.
Okay. And then it releases the hormone, the growth hormone.
Right. And then the growth, so it's released, it's made and released from the anterior pituitary.
Okay.
It's going to go into your bloodstream, and then it's going to go somewhere else in your body.
Okay.
And they all work like that. They're all being made in the anterior pituitary, and they're going to be released somewhere in your body, wherever it's got to go. So I've got videos on it. I've got a video that I already made explaining this, but it's not a whole lot different from what we're doing in class. But I think I tried to break it up into shorter segments. There's also other videos, like you can probably find some easier videos on YouTube. Or there's always the book. The book might work. You just never know what works. But it's much better for you if it makes sense. And then once it makes sense, then go memorize the words.
Okay.
You just feel better about it. Like you feel like you got a hold of it. It's just a matter of memorizing things. When you try to memorize all the letters, I mean, look, if it's like the day before the test, memorize the letters. It's what you got to do. You have no choice. But if you understand it, you'll feel a lot better about it, and then it tends to stick in your head more.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And again, these come up like you're going to be studying things like peds in nursing school. Then these hormones come up, and reproduction, embryology. These come back up. Like all these. This definitely, like the steroid stuff, that's all gonna come back up. These are all on anterior pituitary. Posterior is a lot easier. Look, that's the whole thing for the posterior. Done. So that's the posterior lobe. There's only 2 hormones. That's it. Which 2 hormones which you're going to come across in the field, like in reality, in practice, right? Vasopressin, that's what they call it in hospitals, and oxytocin, which is what they give to like induced labor. So, but these are 2 hormones. Also, they're hormones that the posterior pituitary makes. So we talked about this lobe. This was the complicated one that makes 7 different types of hormones. Now we're on this one, which is a lot easier. And this one, do I have a better? Yeah. See on this side, there's like nerves connected with it. So there's no hormones, there's no releasing hormones. If this hypothalamus wants to talk with the anterior, it has to make a hormone that goes to the blood and ends up here. Posterior is much easier. They're connected, they're wired up together. So there's no releasing. And there's no.
Can you put that slide back up, the previous one? The one that's shown. Yeah, that one right there. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that's it. They don't make it doesn't make any hormones. It just holds 2 hormones that the hypothalamus makes. ADH stands for Anti-Diuretic Hormone. So it's like against diuretic. This is my brother-in-law. Tark? Okay. Yeah, just whatever. Everything went all right. Okay. Oh, we're about to take off in about a couple hours. Florida. Like in 2 hours.
Do I need to watch the cats today or just?
Let me put you guys on hold for 1 second. Hey, class, let me just put you, just let me mute myself for 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry. All right. You guys have any questions on whatever we went over so far? Can't believe you're on the phone. Patient care. She can hear me still. Okay. All right. Posterior. Anti-diuretic hormone. So a diuretic, you might be thinking something that makes you pee a lot. Right? A diuretic is like coffee, alcohol. These things make you pee. So anti-diuretic is making you not pee or not pee as much. So that's what it does. And then you see like another name I put in parentheses, which is kind of what they call it more often, vasopressin. So it's like something's pressing on your blood vessel. So ADH is all about blood pressure. It keeps your blood pressure set up.
Wait, we can't hear you.
Oh, really? Let me move. Yeah, I'm better in here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you sound better. You just went low.
Yeah. So anti-diuretic, there's no reason to have so many pillows.
That's good.
Antidiuretic
You got
hormone.
a lot of pillows.
I got it on another slide. So antidiuretic hormone, that's for blood pressure to keep it up. It's going to make you pee less. And then oxytocin is going to, really, I thought I'd have I guess I don't. Oxytocin is going to cause uterine contractions. It does two things. Well, it does a lot of things, but two main things. So it causes uterine contractions when you're giving birth. And it does something called the letdown reflex. And so that puts the milk into the duct. So prolactin, for example, is going to cause you to produce milk, but that's not enough. You have to put the milk into the duct to have it ready. So that's what oxytocin does. So they work together. And then also oxytocin helps your uterus to contract, to push the baby out. So oxytocin is the easy one. Let's talk about ADH. That's the more, it's not really difficult. So forget about like everything at the top of the slide here. Let me make it larger. All right, let's just look down here. All right, so the goal of ADH is to keep your blood pressure from going down even more. Right. So our body is designed to raise blood pressure, not lower blood pressure. Right. But that's our problem today. Everyone's got high blood pressure, right? But that's not. You got to think about us being, chasing down wild animals with spears, and and not having food and not having water for a few days at a time. This is this is like Walking Dead scenario, right? That's what our bodies are designed for. So we're trying to keep blood pressure up. So blood pressure is related to a few things, but one of the things is how much water is in your body. So the more water that you have in your body, the more blood you have in your body. So water is related to blood. When you drink a bottle of water, you're literally going to have more blood in you than you did before. It's plasma. It goes into your plasma. Your plasma is mostly water. So more water in your body equals more blood. More blood equals higher pressure. So you think about a lot of people that are on blood pressure meds, they're on water pills, right? They're on the exact opposite of this ADH. They're on diuretics. They're peeing a lot. They're keeping themselves dehydrated on purpose because their blood pressure is too high. So dehydrated means less water in your body, less blood. Less blood means lower blood pressure. So, there you're just kind of playing. You're like, well, I'm dehydrated all day, and that's not super healthy. But the other side is if I keep high blood pressure, I'm going to end up with a stroke or on dialysis. So now when you got a choice, I'll take the dehydration. Right? I'll go pee a lot. So one of the ways that your body can control blood pressure, you see down here at the bottom, that picture of a kidney. Your kidneys are the ones that regulate how much water is in your blood. So when you're peeing clear water-looking pee, that's because of your kidneys. When you're peeing nasty yellow, dark yellow pee, that's because of your kidneys. It's choosing how much water to put into your urine. If you're drinking tons of water, then your kidneys are like, yeah, fine. Put a bunch of water in that urine. But when you don't drink a lot, and your kidneys, ADH is not working, right? So whenever your urine's like a dark yellow, that's because of ADH. Your kidneys are like, yeah, I'm just going to put just enough water in that urine just to get it out of the body, right? But I'm not trying to add anything extra to it because this person's dehydrated. That is what ADH does. So right here, if you read number 4, it's saying kidneys retain more water, which decreases urine output. So your kidneys are trying to hold on to the water that's in your blood. It's not interested in spending that. Let's leave the middle part. This one here is like you sweat less. That's not like a huge thing. This one out here is another big thing. Contract your blood vessels. Right? So when you squeeze your blood vessels, pressure goes up. Think about like a bottle of water. Right? When you squeeze the bottle of water, what happens to the pressure inside? It goes up. It's that simple. So that's why we call it also vasopressin. It constricts some of your blood vessels. That's a really quick way to get blood pressure up. Just squeeze all your blood vessels, blood pressure goes up right away. That's actually faster than peeing less. That, you could do that really quick. So antidiuretic hormone, what's going to trigger it? Like all this stuff that they're saying up here, blah, 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 osmo, something, something. You're dehydrated. That's what's triggering it. You're dehydrated and your blood pressure is going down. Right? When you're dehydrated, your body figures it out. It knows you're dehydrated because you've got water like going in your cells and out of your cells really quick. It's like this. Imagine your cell is like a sponge, like a damp sponge. You put the damn sponge up to some water to like clean it, and you see some of the water starts to go into the sponge, but the sponge is damp, right? It's not like wet, but it's like, you used it a few hours ago. So it's going in there kind of slow. Now think of like a completely dry sponge, and you put it up to the water, it's like sucking it up really quick. Right? That's what our body senses. Like it's like, oh, it's sucking up the water too quick. Like that's what it means by like this osmo receptor. It's sensing that it's like the water shouldn't be leaving this quick out of our cells. It's too fast. Something's wrong. Right? We must be dehydrated. But the important thing here that you need to take away is, what does antidiuretic hormone do? It does 3 things, but 2 of them I definitely want you to talk about. Number 1, tells your kidneys to hold on to water, not use it in urine. Number 2, constrict blood vessels. Not all of them, but that's a different chapter. For now, just it constricts some of your blood vessels. Those 2 things are going to keep your blood pressure up. See these, there's like cells here in the hypothalamus. That's kind of like the sponge, like when the water, or not like it's like, I don't know how to say, like when the water gets sucked out of these receptors really quick, like faster than it should, then you see the nerves are already hooked up down here in the posterior lobe. So that's just automatically going to cause a release of antidiuretic hormone. But anyway, that's what antidiuretic hormone does. Do you have any questions on antidiuretic hormone? So make sure you know, more water in your body equals more blood. More blood equals higher blood pressure. That's simple. So anyone that like comes into a hospital dehydrated, one of the things that you're going to see is that their blood pressure it's going to be low, and often the numbers will be closer together. So like instead of being like 120/80, it'll be like, I don't know, 100 over, I don't know, 90/70. Just making up some numbers, right? But they're closer together, right? The 90/70 is only 20 points apart. A blood pressure of like 120/80, that's like 40 points apart, right? So that's kind of like a sign. And then their heart rate, if your blood pressure is low, what do you think your heart will do? As far as like, is it going to beat faster? Is it going to beat slower? And you could just say it to yourself. You don't have to unmute.
It's gonna be faster, right?
Yeah, it's got to try to compensate.
Yeah.
I mean, because ultimately you're trying to get oxygen all around your body. So if your blood pressure is low, you're not delivering oxygen well. So your heart's going to try to make up for that. So you're going to see a fast heart rate and a low blood pressure, and in the unit you're gonna be looking at their pee. Hopefully you're making them pee in a bag, and either they're not going to pee. I mean, that's when you're really dehydrated, or a little bit comes out and it's nasty yellow color. So then as you start hydrating the people, stick an IV bag in them, start hydrating them, their urine's going to start coming out a lighter color. But and more, an easier thing you could see is that their heart rate's going to start to go down as the blood pressure comes up. So, but that's antidiuretic hormone. That's one of the hormones that's working right away when blood pressure goes down. And they use it. They'll, like, when they want to get somebody's blood pressure up, they'll use vasopressin, like in a hospital setting. Oh my God, we've only gone an hour. Isn't that depressing? Like all that information and it's only been an hour. Let me look at the next slide. I mean, the next you guys want to take like a break for a few minutes till like 11:45, and then like I'm going to give you a little more information, but I don't want to give you like a ton more information. I'm probably going to talk about the thyroid gland, but I'm definitely going to stop there. That's what this is. So I'm going to move away from the pituitary, and now I'm going to talk about the thyroid. Definitely not going that far. Okay. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. All right. So let's take a break for 5 minutes. Let me stop recording this, and I'm going to start recording again. So let me just make this